After her parents died in a tragic accident, 19-year-old Amora was left at the mercy of her cold-hearted stepmother. Turned into a housemaid in her own home, she lived in silence and sorrow. One day, her stepmother announced she had arranged a marriage to a blind man she'd never met, a man said to live in poverty. Amora begged, cried, and protested. But her stepmother didn't care. What Amora didn't know was that this poor blind man had secrets, and he was watching her every move. Just 19, Amora's world had been torn apart. She once lived in a warm home filled with laughter, books, and the scent of her late mother's cooking. But when her parents died in a tragic car accident 2 years ago, everything changed. Her stepmother, Clara, once sweet and kind during her father's life, revealed her true colors. The moment the funeral ended, Amora was no longer seen as family. She became a servant in her own house, scrubbing floors, cooking meals she never ate, and enduring endless insults. Her room was the tiny storeroom under the stairs. Her meals? Scraps, sometimes forgotten altogether. But she endured it, praying that someday she'd be free, that maybe her stepmother would soften. She never did. One fateful morning, Clara called her in with an eerie smile. "You always wanted to leave this house, right? Well, congratulations. You're getting married." Amora froze. Married? To who? He's blind. Quiet. Poor. Lives alone in some village, I don't know. But he's agreed to take you. At least someone wants you. Amora's heart dropped. She protested. She cried. But Clara wasn't negotiating. This wasn't a wedding, it was a trade-off, a way to rid herself of a responsibility she never wanted. You're an orphan, Amora. You have nothing. No job. No family. Be grateful someone is even offering to take you in. The next day, without ceremony, without dress or joy, Amora was shoved into a rusty old taxi with a small bag of clothes. No family. No friends. Just silence, tears, and a deep sense of abandonment. But the driver said something that made her pause. "You're marrying Sir Dan? Hey, brave girl. Not many women would go near him. But you might be just what he's been waiting for." Waiting for? Amora didn't understand. All she knew was that she was on her way to a stranger's house. A blind man. Poor. Alone. And she? An unloved girl with nothing but scars, both visible and hidden. Little did she know. This marriage would change her life forever. After hours of tense silence during the drive, the car pulled into a large, quiet compound on the outskirts of town. It was nothing like the slum her stepmother had described. The building, though old, stood tall with an air of hidden wealth behind its dusty walls. Ivy crept along the gates, and a rusty brass lion's head knocker gave it a strange sense of forgotten royalty. The girl stepped out, heart pounding. Her torn dress fluttered in the dry wind. Her hands trembled, and her mind was flooded with questions. Why here? Who was this man? And why was her stepmother so desperate to make this happen? The door creaked open. Standing in the dim hallway was a man in his late 20s, leaning on a cane with dark glasses shielding his eyes. His expression was unreadable, but he greeted them with a nod. "This is your bride," the stepmother said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You're lucky we agreed to this, considering your condition." The word stung like a slap. His condition, the girl thought. What did she mean? She realized in an instant, he was blind. The man didn't speak much. He simply motioned for the girl to come in, thanked the stepmother politely, and offered her a cup of water once they were alone. The wedding was conducted that same evening. No guests. No music. No joy. Just a blind man standing beside a girl who had no idea what her future held. The local priest said a few prayers. The couple exchanged vows in silence. No ring was given, just a handshake and a whispered "You may go now." She was led to a modest room in the back of the house. There was a bed, a desk, a bookshelf filled with old books, and a radio playing soft classical music. The blind man knocked once on her door. "I know this isn't the life you wanted," he said gently. "I didn't want this either. But let's just try to survive." His voice was soft, calm. Not what she expected. The next few days were strange. He never raised his voice. Never touched her without asking. He stayed in his study most times, listening to music and typing things she couldn't see. Who was he really, she wondered. She tried cooking one day. Burnt the rice. He laughed. "Don't worry, that's how I learned too." Something shifted in her chest. She began noticing small things. The kindness in how he spoke, the way he asked about her day, and the rare, faint smiles he gave when she told him stories of her childhood before everything went wrong. But the biggest surprise came one rainy night. She accidentally knocked over a locked box while cleaning. The lid popped open, and inside were stacks of documents, foreign currency, and gold wristwatches. She froze. Heart pounding. "Who are you, really?" she whispered. From the doorway, his calm voice responded. "You weren't supposed to see that. But maybe it's time you knew the truth." Days turned into weeks. What began as an arrangement steeped in silence and shame slowly began to change. Every morning, she would hear him moving through the mansion alone. No butlers. No family. Just him and his footsteps, carefully measured with the help of his cane. And yet, there was something oddly composed, dignified about him, like he didn't need sight to see everything. Despite being blind, he noticed her every gesture. One evening, while she quietly swept the hallway near his study, he said calmly, "You're sad. You hum differently when you're sad." She froze. No one had ever paid that kind of attention to her. Certainly not her stepmother. They began to speak. First with questions about the day, then about books, then about pain. She learned that he lost his parents in a mysterious car accident, and since then, he had shut the world out, including his wealth. He'd gone blind shortly after, not just in sight, but in trust. He never told her about the vast company he secretly ran from his study using assistants and advanced technology. He never told her that her stepmother had been offered a bribe to get her out of the way. He was testing her heart. Meanwhile, her stepmother wasn't done. When she realized her plan hadn't driven her stepdaughter into despair, she showed up unannounced at the mansion, pretending to check in. "How's married life, my dear?" she asked with a venomous smile. "Are you at least feeding him well?" She chuckled sarcastically, thinking she'd married her off to a burden. What she didn't know was that the blind man, who sat quietly sipping tea beside them, was already one step ahead. That same day, the girl found a letter hidden in a drawer. It was old, stained with time, but the name on the envelope made her freeze, her mother's name. Her heart pounded. She opened it. Inside was a letter from the blind man's late mother addressed to hers. They had once been best friends, and there had been a promise of unity between their families. Her hands trembled. She stared at the closed study door where her husband worked in silence. Who exactly was this man? Why did he pretend not to know her? And what was he hiding behind those calm, sightless eyes? The days that followed were nothing short of magical and terrifying all at once. Amora, now growing used to the silence and vastness of the mansion, had learned to observe closely. Not just her husband's needs, but the way he quietly commanded every room. Even without his eyes, there was something powerful about his presence. She often found herself wanting to impress him, to care for him more than she was asked. But then, it all came crashing down one morning. The doorbell rang. Amora opened it, and standing there was her stepmother, dressed to kill, with crocodile tears and an apology rehearsed far too many times. "My daughter," she cried, clutching Amora's hands, "I made a terrible mistake. Forgive me. Come home. This man isn't right for you. He's blind. He can't take care of you." Before Amora could respond, the blind man stepped into the room. He stood tall, unbothered by the insult, and with a calm smile said, "You're right. I may be blind, but I see people better than you ever will." There was a cold silence. Suddenly, a security guard entered and handed the stepmother a letter. Confused, she opened it, her face immediately went pale. Like and make sure to subscribe for part 2, because what happens next will shock you. Also comment part 2 in the comments.